All right, everyone. So my name is Wilbur. I am a software engineer here at Leap Motion, and today we have the honor of having Zach Kinstner with us. He is a software contractor with nearly a decade of UX and design experience. He is now focusing on VR interactions. He's also the founder of a software development company called Aesthetic Interactive. Zach, would you like to introduce yourself to us?
Hi. Well, thanks, Wilbur. Yeah, like you said, I've done software for about a decade now, doing a lot of software and design and creative contracting and consulting. I like to take on very creative, highly visual work, creative, challenging projects. And lately I've been working on virtual reality interfaces like Hovercast and Hoverboard.
Yeah, so would you like to tell us more about Hovercast?
Sure. So Hovercast is a menu interface for virtual reality. It shows up as an arc of menu items that extend beyond the fingertips of one of your hands. And with the index finger of your other hand, you bring it close to the menu to make selections. You can dive into the menu to nested levels and grab your hand to go back up those levels. There are standard buttons, checkboxes, radio sets, sliders. So you bring your finger close and it sticks. And you go up and down and you pull it away to release it.
Right. So I see in the video here you are playing with the sliders and the buttons that you're mentioning.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So this video it's going to be a little difficult with the Twitch delay. So yeah, this video shows the variety of different menu interactions. It shows how the menu appears when you bring your palm towards facing towards your eyes. There are indicators, visual indicators on each of the menu items that show how far away your cursor finger is from the menu item.
Right.
And when you get close enough, when the indicator gets to 100%, you have about a half of a second where the hover indicator, the hover timer, climbs up to 100%. And when that happens, then the selection occurs and the actions take place.
I see that
so lots of visual feedback to let you know where you are in space, and you have a quick moment of time to react and pull away if it's going to do something that you didn't expect to do, didn't want to do.
Right. So how if you're navigating through the menu, how do you go back a level?
So you can set up individual buttons to navigate back, and then there's also a grab gesture. So if you do a grab gesture, that cycles you back one level up the menu hierarchy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's built as a tool for developers to use. So at the GitHub page, it's an open source project. There are instructions about how to use it, how to get set up with it. It's set up to be a generic menu system where you can put in your own menu hierarchy, your own menu items with their own listeners and event handlers. And there are a variety of settings and different things you can do to make it look and feel how you want.
What kind of settings do you support in the Hovercast menu?
So the standard Kate's saying our video is frozen. The standard settings are the colors and font sizes and opacities. Mm-hmm. But there are also settings for distances, like they're called interaction settings, where you can control the distances for the hover and the timing for how long it will take before that hover event occurs. It also supports what I call renderers, where you can drop in your own custom components to replace the look and feel entirely. So as long as your component implements the interface for the renderer, you can drop it in and it will display however you want. So I think it would be interesting to try. I haven't done it yet, but having circular menu items where the hover and the indicators kind of grow from the center. Instead of having the wedge shape, it could be circular. They could even be spheres or three-dimensional shapes. It's really...
Oh, three-dimensional meaning instead of just playing around the hand, you're thinking about a depth, so you can have closer buttons and further buttons. Or is that what you're thinking of?
Well, the renderers, each menu item could be a three-dimensional shape.
Oh, I see. Yes.
But they'll be positioned all along that same the plane of that arc.
I also heard that you were looking into one-hand menus. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. There's a video. I don't know if I think you have the link. So the one-handed mode is for the Oculus headset, and it will take essentially where the straightforward direction that you're looking, and it will plot the cursor circle on the plane of the menu. So if you'll see in the video, if you kind of do this, you'll see that the cursor gets further and away from you.
Right.
And so at that point, the menu works just like it would if the cursor was your finger. So that spot that it casts a ray from your looking position to that plane, and wherever the cursor is will be how you make the selection. So you can look directly at the menu items, or you can look off to the side of them and kind of get a sense for seeing those indicators go up and down as you get closer.
So what made you decide on having these kind of visual cues? Are there other visual cues that you tried that did not work?
I'm trying to think. I don't know if there's other visual cues. I had done different things with my work on the Fragmental game. Maybe we'll talk about that a little later.
Okay.
Drawing lines between fingertips and the thing you're about to interact with. But I find that those linear progress meter kind of indicators work well. Right. They give a good sense of where you are in space and how close you are to performing an action. And they're nice as just a way to register that these things are interactive and they're listening to what you're doing and just kind of helping you learn while you're playing around with it. You kind of start to learn how things work, how close you have to be, how fast you can move past it to not register a button press. Maybe you're doing a different gesture, things like that. So having an indicator helps you get a feel for that without a lot of really drawn out instruction.
Are there any new projects you're working on right now that you'd like to share with us?
I will probably talk about Hoverboard a little later. Hoverboard is the demo video is a keyboard style user interface, but really it's capable of doing any kind of grids of buttons that fit onto a three-dimensional plane, and those planes, those surfaces can be fixed to your camera, so they follow around with you as you move, sort of like a HUD. But they can also be fixed in world space or onto other objects. So maybe you're walking up to a terminal on a wall or something, and you can do the keyboard or or any kind of buttons right there on that right up there on that plane, the hoverboard.
Hold on a second here. So in its current iteration, you classified Hovercast as a developer tool. Is this is this because that is still very much in developer space?
So I call it a developer tool because it's a user interface kit. It's made for developers to integrate into their virtual reality games and applications. They can customize it to suit their own needs. The interface itself, what you see in the application, what you interact with, that's geared towards users. That's the goal there is to be quick and easy to use, and easy to learn, and reactive. As you're moving your fingers close to it. But yeah, I think in a broader sense, it's a developer tool. It's only useful when it has menu items to show, when it has events tied to those menu items, and when it's customized and tailored for a virtual reality app.
Right. Sorry, give me a second. Kate, are we having technical difficulties?
Yeah, we're having some streaming issues. So just make sure that it seems like when the YouTube video is maximized,
okay,
it's freezing a little bit. So
okay,
maybe keep it minimized.
Sure. Is the voice still going through?
Yeah, the audio is fine.
Okay. Yeah, it seems like sorry about that. It seems like when you maximize YouTube video, the bandwidth is too high for it to handle. I have to refrain from doing that. You said in one of your posts that you're interested in tackling the complexity wall of user experience problems in VR. What has driven you to, devote the time and resources to the VR space?
Okay, well, so the complexity wall is how I was trying to describe what I was running into as I thought through virtual reality applications that I would want to build. It's easy enough to implement an initial interaction where you've got an object and you're using gestures or direct interactions to control it. That's easy enough and it's fun to use, but the minute you need something more complex, the minute you need to either load a game or save a game or switch an area or change some settings, change the color, any of that kind of thing that you would need to make a fully functional application, it gets difficult. That's the complexity wall. That's when you've either got to resort to keyboard and mouse input, which I prefer not to do. That's if you're in virtual reality, you want to be immersed in the space. You don't want to have to reach out and find something on your desk that you can't see. And so at that point, you kind of have two options. You either implement your own virtual reality interface that uses Leapmotion or other three-dimensional input devices, or excuse me, or you kind of have to resort to coming up with new gestures to do each new thing. So,
right.
Maybe, I got to save my game, now I have to do this motion or something. And then you start to get all those different motions are colliding with each other, and they're hard to learn. There's not an obvious way for your users, unless you're constantly writing out all these different things. It's not discoverable for your users. So having a menu interface like Hovercast, where it's very simple, you just pull it up and start making selections and changing settings, I think is really useful.
Mm-hmm. What made you decide to build Hovercast, by the way? What gave you the idea in the first place?
Sorry,
what gave you the idea to build Hovercast?
Well, kind of along those same lines. So as you run into that complexity wall, I knew that I would need some form of interface if I wanted to build a bigger, more complicated virtual reality app, and that got me along the lines of how would I do that? What would that interface look like? I started thinking about using your fingers as menu items, and that expanded to using a whole arc, so you can have a whole bunch of menu items with sliders, and so I just carried along that idea.
Right.
I think that I could have, and I didn't want to just wait for those interfaces to come out.
Yeah, exactly.
And I figured that if I was going to take the time to build up an interface like Hovercast for a single app, I might as well just do it right and make it a reusable component that I can drop into projects that I'm working on, and hopefully other open source developers can use as well.
So, I know you developed Hovercast, so maybe a little bit biased, but using Hovercast and developing Hovercast, are there any challenges that you faced and conquered that you want to share with other designers that may want to also dive into virtual reality interfaces? There
are plenty of challenges during development. in the second blog post, I think it was called Behind the Design, kind of went through the iterations of the design process. And like we were talking about, it started out with doing them on individual menu items on individual fingers and then in between fingers. And what I've sort of found out there is that having menu items that are, or selections at all, that all exist on a single plane, I think is easier than having ones that can kind of wiggle around and now you've got to search for them. I find that it's pretty easy once you get a feel for that three-dimensional plane. Your hands can pretty well stay on it. You don't have to search around too much to find that plane. One of the challenges that came up at GitHub, which everybody is welcome to go check out and participate in the issues section there, and let me know if things come up. One of the things that came up was that the sliders are hard with precision.
Sorry, we lost you a little bit there. Can you repeat that? The sliders are...
Oh, sure. The sliders are hard to release with precision. As you're pulling away from it, your finger gets further away, and there's a couple degrees of movement where you're trying to hit exactly 100 and you end up at 103 or something.
I see.
So that's a problem I'm working on, and right now I think the solution is to just minimize the up and down movement as you get further away. So it kind of reacts more slowly as you get further away, and that seems to work okay. Right. Another slider related thing that came up recently was that some developers wanted to see the like a jump action where they didn't have to slide down to a particular value. They could say the slider is their entire arc. They could just put their finger next to the bottom and the slider would jump.
Okay. Right. Yeah.
So there's an animation of that one. I don't know if I think you have the link in that document.
Let's see if I can find that. Yes, jumper one.
Yeah, it's the jump slider one.
It's loading right now. Is it this one?
Yep. So the solution that I came up with there is to show a thinner wedge that appears in the menu slider as you, like in the track of the slider, as you bring.
I see.
And so as soon as that timer indicator gets to 100%, the slider handle itself jumps down. And that seems to work. And the handle stays at your finger at that point, and you release it as usual.
It's very cool.
Thanks.
So I heard about your new project, the Hoverboard, where you decided to split the keyboard as opposed to a traditional keyboard. Do you want to talk about that one? Sure.
I think you got a video for that too. I'm not sure. Are the videos working?
I think so, as long as I don't full screen it.
Okay. Yeah. So Hoverboard, like we were discussing, is the demo is a keyboard. It's suitable for a much broader variety of use cases. Anywhere you'd want to have a flat plane of buttons, whether they're fixed to your camera or in world space, it will work. It uses the same hover style interactions that Hovercast does. So as you move your finger closer, the boxes in the demo, it's a blue color. The blue color goes to 100%, and once you get close enough, the blue goes to 100%. The green also goes to 100% in about a half a second. In the demo, I also added a fast select mode where I think it's more like 200 milliseconds, and that works once you get a feel for where you are in space and how it works. The fast mode works pretty well. There are, I guess, different than Hovercast is that you now have a two-finger usage mode as well,
right.
Where you can have a cursor on your thumb and index finger, that's configurable as well. So you could use your pinky finger if you wanted to, where you can reach out and kind of do a little bit of touch typing like that. And and Hovercast also has a new type of visual indicator. I guess it's sort of like a spotlight, where it draws a line between your finger and the nearest spot on the plane. I'm not sure if they're seeing that on the video.
It's. Give me a second here. They're commenting that the stream froze again. They can hear everything, but
Okay.
yeah, trying to figure out how to. I think it's slightly better now.
Seems to be the smaller the video is, the.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to keep the video slightly smaller than I would liked. Okay. I closed some apps already. I was getting errors saying CPU usage was abnormally high. Maybe that'll help. Okay, yeah. So when I first saw this keyboard, my first thought to mind was it looks like one of those ergonomic keyboards that some people on Kickstarter tries to make. Yeah, those keyboards with a 90 degrees angle where your hands are kind of sideways like this, or maybe even 90 degrees.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So yeah, that's something we could talk about. The demo shows two different styles of keyboards.
Mm-hmm.
One is the sort of the default one for the demo is it's got two planes that angle out away from you, and I liked that one for head-mounted mode because it gives you a good sense of depth.
Right.
As your fingers go away, and it for now that the hand models aren't transparent, so it helps you see the keys. It also helps you see that spotlight indicator that we were talking about. Basically, that spotlight just draws a line straight from your finger to the nearest spot on the plane, and it shows a circle that gets smaller as you zero in on a spot. So that just helps you, even if you're not looking directly at something, you can still get a feel for exactly where your finger will end up.
Right.
On the keyboard when you move close to it. The other mode is a more of a traditional flat keyboard that's all in one piece. That works a little bit better for table mounted mode. And I find when you're in virtual reality, even with the indicators, it's still a little bit difficult to get a sense of depth. Sometimes you feel like you're closer to the plane of the keyboard than you actually are.
Right. Oh, for the viewers that that been following, there's two modes that we talk about here. The VR mode, which is the mode that you see when you put on the Oculus. The table mode that Zach was mentioning is if you have the motion device on the table facing upwards. This is not VR, but it's on a desktop table mode. For viewers that weren't sure.
I've been trying to include builds like that in my demos, just because not everybody has the Oculus headset. So you can still try them out even if you don't have the VR equipment. You can still get a feel for how they work. Hovercast doesn't work so well in table mounted mode, just because basically the camera sees that of your hand because it's facing towards your eyes. But if you tilt it down just a little bit towards the tabletop, it'll work okay, but not nearly as well as when you've got the head-mounted view.
Right. So I'm sure I might. I'm wondering about. I see that you activate the keys when you hover it long enough or close enough. How does that work? Is it hover duration or is it by touching the key?
So the blue color is the proximity, the distance of your cursor to the actual key, and then the green is the timer. And those colors are all configurable, but in the video that's what they are. And so you'll see in fast mode the green grows much more quickly than in the standard mode.
Right.
And that's just a function of how many milliseconds you want your hover timer to be.
Right.
But one of the nice things about the hover actions in general, aside from the visual indicators, which we talked about that I like a lot, is that you can move your hand right through the keyboard without it registering a key press or a button press. And I think that's nice if you have scenarios where you want to avoid competing interests with your gestures, maybe you've got to reach out and grab something quickly. You wouldn't want that quick movement right through a panel to trigger your menu buttons. That's not your intention. So it's nice that there is that bit of delay. You can move quickly through it. In the demo video I can actually go behind the menu or behind the plane of the keyboard and do selections from the opposite side. So I don't know how useful that is.
Oh, you mean by you press the left side with the right hand?
Yeah, you can go on either side to make selections, but you can go right through the plane of the menu and make selections from behind it.
Oh, I see. Oh, that's interesting. So instead of typing like this, maybe you type towards you?
Yeah, you could. Cool. I don't know if that's so useful for the typing the typing use case, but maybe with as the project progresses, I hope to give it sliders and the other kind of checkbox features that Hovercast has. There could be use cases where it makes sense to do things from behind. I'm not sure, but it works. So feel free to experiment.
Awesome. Yeah, I see that because because the timer is to prevent people from accidentally touching a key that they don't want to touch, right? Because sometimes I see your hand, you want to rest your hands and you just fall your hands right down, and you don't want to press the keys when it's falling down. Yep,
and it helps avoid mistakes too. If you got closer to a key than you expected, you start to see that green flash. You can pull your hand away. I've heard various concerns, about the hover timing and how it kind of slows things down, and I think that's a totally fair point. But you have to also weigh that in the balance of how much time am I saving by not having to be extra careful with where I'm moving and making errors that I didn't, selecting things accidentally. Now I've got to go back and fix them, undo it or whatever. So it's a trade-off, and at this point, I think the hover, for me, it works well.
Right. So both Hovercast and Hoverboard, the two applications you showed us today, managed to really play to Leap Motion's strengths. How did you arrive to your, designs that you have right now? Did they arrive intuitively, or is it like a trial and error process that you went through?
Yeah, no real process. I would say it's mostly just intuitive. I tend to trust my instincts when it comes to user experience. I've been doing this a while, so you can't always predict what's going to happen with users. I still get surprised with users. But you get a pretty good feel for how things work, and I think my earlier work on Fragmental helped get me to the mindset and the hovers and the state of my designs right now. One of the things, Fragmental was my first experience with Leap Motion, first experience with Unity too. But it was very, ambitious. I guess you'd say to expect players to, and this was before VR, so you have to reach out and grab the shapes and rotate them in 90-degree increments and move them, and there are a whole bunch of indicators there to help you along, but it can still be challenging. The game itself is challenging. It's like 3D Tetris, so
yeah.
So there's a lot of spatial gameplay happening there.
Let's see if I can show people.
One of the things that I adopted with Fragmental was the use of those visual indicators. So you'll always see, as your hand gets close to the blocks, you'll see things lighting up to tell you that you're getting close. You'll see progress meters going around and over the pieces to let you know how your rotations are going, how close you are to completing it. And some colors change on the blocks when you get your hand far enough away, because when your hand is far enough away, then you're in camera mode and you can grab and throw the camera to orbit around the central Tetris grid in the middle.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So I have here a video. This is a little too fast. Let me grab the one speed.
So yeah, the video will show you starting in a three-dimensional menu system where you grab blocks to make the menu selections, and eventually it'll enter into gameplay. And then you can see how you grab the pieces and move them around. The 4x speed video is interesting because you can kind of see the strategy of moving the pieces around and how the blocks clear away really quickly. But the regular speed one will give you a better sense of how the interactions work and how the game flows.
Right. I see that in the one-time speed, your hand, the palm changes color, and there's some indications of the camera on the side. And I see that you also have in the background, it kind of highlights on the size of the blocks and the positions, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. So at the top, I call it the staging area. At the top, it projects the piece onto all the walls. That just helps you get a better sense of depth and where the piece is. It also tracks. I think there are like a crosshair on each wall that shows where the center of your hand is when you reach into the space. And so again, this was before we were doing the virtual reality headset. So people were. It's difficult for people to sort of translate their three-dimensional movements above the table-mounted leap into a two-dimensional representation of what they're doing. It's tricky, and it takes a bit of getting used to. So I just tried to use as many indicators and visual cues that I could to help people reach in and find the block and know where they are.
Yeah.
And so also when you grab the piece and pull it down, it shows you like a white border around the block.
Right.
Shows some animations on the walls to kind of let you know you've got to drag it down past this point and release it.
I see that there's even a very faint shadow of the hand at the very bottom showing you where the hand is overlaying.
Mm-hmm. Yep, there's shadows from the hands onto the block, and there's reflections at the bottom, which kind of help you get a sense for how high the pieces are. So I guess we're talking about Fragmental sort of in the context of where I am now with Hovercast, and I would say that I kind of tried to move to the other extreme. With Fragmental, we had lots and lots of interactions and movements and complicated things. And so with Hovercast and learning about the leap and learning how to play the leap strengths, I really wanted to distill a menu interface to just the very simplest that I could do. So that's sort of the origin of the hover. Is you just need one finger, and it doesn't matter how your hand is oriented or if it's one finger up or all of them. It's just one finger, and you just move it. There's no gesture required, no like tap or push or anything like that. Everything that you need to know about performing the hover is indicated by the visual meters on the menu items. So you get a feel for, hey, these menu items are reacting to me when I put my finger close to it and move around. And you quickly learn if you get close enough, the timer will go off and we'll make a selection. So now with a very simple, reliable, stable motion, you can do a whole bunch of sophisticated, nested menu levels and buttons and all the different checkboxes and radios and sliders, all with one simple hover selection interaction.
In the post that you wrote for the Leap Motion blog, you mentioned that the Hovercast functions largely lessen the learning curve as people accommodate themselves to VR interactions without needing tutorials. At what point do you determine a tutorial unnecessary?
Yeah, it's a hard question. I think it's got to be very subjective, and user tests help with that. I don't always have the time or resources here to do a lot of user testing. For Fragmental, I definitely needed a tutorial, and I I would prefer to not have to build a tutorial. It was a lot of work, but the interactions were just so complicated, and there were so many different things that it was just necessary to not only teach players how the game works and what it's about, but also all the interactions, and it's a new input. People aren't used to it anyway. They probably never used the leap before, or very infrequently. So the tutorial was definitely needed there. But for something like Hovercast, I hope it won't need a tutorial. I hope even watching a few seconds of video will give you a perfect idea of how to use it. Really, there's 3 interactions. There's the hands tilting towards you. There's the hover motion in general, just bringing your hand close. And then there's the grab for navigating back in the menu. I think the grab motion is probably the least discoverable at this point. There's not really any way to know. And that's something I can think about. But there's not really any way to know right now that the grab will do anything.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Have you done user tests for the Hovercast?
No, not personally. I mean, I've had family members try it out, but nothing serious. No in-depth user testing.
Right.
A handful of developers that have been playing with Hovercast have done some user testing though, and so far, it sounds like that's going really well. That's actually where a couple of those slider issues that we talked about, the jump slider and the difficulty with releasing, those came from developers who have integrated and are trying Hovercast and have done some user testing.
Nice.
And so I think it's pretty good if that's the issues that they found. Those are more like enhancements than big issues, I think. So I was happy with those results.
Mm-hmm. Are there any current challenges that still exist with the current implementation you have that people have mentioned and you haven't found solutions to yet? And what do you think about tackling them if you have problems that you know that you have?
Well, like we talked about, the slider release is one of them that I'd like to improve. When it comes to Hoverboard, that's still brand new. The one video that I put out is the very first prototype. So I think that will continue to improve and have more and more functionality available, sliders and all the other button types. I guess it's not directly related to the interface, but I do want to continue to improve the process for integrating Hovercast. At the GitHub page, there's a getting started documentation and also a quick start that includes a little animation. It's fairly simple at this point, but I think it could be easier. Right now, it kind of, even for like the default settings, it requires you to drop a component in there and connect it to the main Hovercast component, just so it knows where to find those settings and those components. I think that could be simplified and just kind of default to the default settings without requiring you to set them up beforehand. So a variety of things like that, I think, will continue to improve. And like I said, if people have ideas or find issues or usability concerns, please do stop into GitHub and add new issues there. Let me know about it, and we can discuss it. Sometimes they're things I haven't thought about. Sometimes they are things I have thought about and I've decided against, because you kind of have to balance a whole bunch of, whole variety of things, whether it's the leap motion tracking or the timing or, insights into how users start using the leap and what they understand, what they don't.
Right.
So yeah, it's a lot of factors, and so I do want to hear all the ideas and issues that come up. And something I should mention too is in terms of the future of the project is that Hoverboard is in the same repository on GitHub as Hovercast.
Oh, okay.
And I did that because they share a lot of common elements. The first prototype of Hoverboard doesn't share the code with Hovercast, but I'm working on that right now, where they all kind of build off the same set of menu items, the same menu functionality, the same hover functionality, all of those things. So they'll all be feeding off in the same central core of code. But what that means is that the structure and the naming of a bunch of these elements in the Hovercast project are going to change. So the getting started and the quick start guides that are available right now are useful for the master branch that's out right now. But probably in the next couple of weeks I'll be rolling, I think it's called UI core branch into master, and then kind of the world will change on you. So play around with it now, but before you get too in depth, it might make sense to wait just a bit so you don't have to redo all the integration work.
Right. So are you using the Leap Motion core assets, the VR assets for this?
Mm-hmm.
Are there any features that helped you greatly, and are there any features you would like it to have in the next release that would make it easier for you?
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, first though, it's the hand controller. I guess the component, the plugin, whatever you might call it. It works well. It's very easy to just drop it in the scene and start seeing your hands. And in the Unity editor, you can see the cone shape of the viewing cone, I guess you'd call it, of the Leap Motion. So it's easy to kind of get it positioned and scaled and oriented correctly, looking at that. It comes with a whole bunch of different 3D hand models, which is great. You can drop in human-looking hands or mechanical, robotic-looking hands, and those are all easy to use, and drop them in. You can change the materials on them, whatever you want to do. So that's great. It's really nice for getting started in Unity. So in terms of things to add, I think I've had to convert some 4x4 matrices to quaternions. So maybe if the API did that for me, that'd be nice. I think the basis matrices for like the bones.
Oh, they're incorrect.
What's that? Sorry.
Were they incorrect?
No, they're correct. I just had to go find the math for converting them into quaternions so I could use them.
I see.
So yeah, if I could get those just with a property in the API, perfect. And then I did recently. I tried to skin my own or rig my own mesh for having hands just to see if I could do it, and I got it to work, but it was difficult. I don't know if there are ways to improve that. That would be nice. You'd probably start to see more people giving that a shot, making cool monster hands or something.
Right.
I'm not sure how you do that though. I was wondering maybe if you could use a naming convention for the anchors that are inside the mesh. Mm-hmm. If your rigging component could discover those based on name or something to make it just kind of automatically work.
It's interesting you brought that up. So have you heard about the mechanism feature that Unity 5 will have?
Yeah.
And so that's something that we are looking into. We're looking into providing a mechanism supported kind of feature where you can have your own 3D avatar and the hands and the body will move, according to Leap Motion's coordinates. Okay. So
it'll like follow your arms too. It'll bring your arms up.
Yeah. That's what we're looking to work on right. It's being worked on right now, and hopefully it will be out soon for the same reason you have. It is definitely an interesting problem where you're trying to make your own system and update the hand, the mesh or non-meshed hands. It's definitely a difficult thing, but with the whole Canon project, it'll hopefully make it a lot easier for other developers like yourself to replace the hands to whatever model you want.
Yeah, I don't. Is there documentation about that? I can't remember I think I was just kind of working off from the examples, just kind of looking at how the components were set up.
Oh, for Canon, or for the hands.
The rigged hands right now.
For the hands, there might not be documentation for that. To my limited knowledge of the core assets, I don't think we have documentation on how to set that part up. I'll find that for you, and hopefully it'll be easier.
Yeah. I think one of the things that threw me off, if anyone's trying to do that out there, the joints and all the fingers, I'm pretty sure they're all based on just rotations. Like I was kind of expecting them to use positions too, to like pull the finger mesh out to where the actual fingertip is. But it seemed like it was just listening to rotations, so I didn't have my fingers in my mesh positioned properly, and I was kind of thinking that they would just stretch the mesh to where the actual bones are, but it just kind of left them. It just kind of left them in their weird like square. They're just kind of like a square mesh shape, and just kind of left them there, and so there it was strange. But so if anyone's trying to do that, I think it's just rotation. So your hand has to be like anatomically right, with the mesh before you start.
Yeah, that might be the case. We have a question from Twitch asking that it shows that your left hand and fingers extended, the menu is showing your fingertips. What happens if you were to turn the angle of the your left hand to the point where your fingers or palms are no longer visible? Do the menu turn off? I'm guessing he means having your fingers, say, point towards you or away from you, where you only see either the palm or the fingers. What happens to the menu?
So the menu fades in gradually as your palm like points towards your eyes, and so that works in all directions. So if your fingers are pointing right towards your eyes, that means your palm is facing away from your eyes, and it would be faded out. I think it's you could probably think of the fading area as roughly like a 45 degree, or I guess a 90 degree cone, all the way around, where you do the dot product of your hand normal towards your eyes.
Right. So that means, hypothetically, I don't know why people would do that, but if you have your palm facing you, but if your fingers are all facing you as well, that means the menus would kind of be very, very thin, right? Or is that what's expected behavior?
So the Leap Motion input module, which that's not something we talked about, but the inputs for Hovercast are each device, it's got its own module. So, and that exists behind an interface. So you could drop in support for like the STEM system controllers or something like that, as long as they implement that input interface. So inside the Leap Motion module, I think the fingers, I gave the fingers a little bit of effect on the menu position, but mostly it's the palms normal. So if you have your hand towards your face and start angling your fingers in, the menu will kind of trail behind your fingers. So it'll be sort of an average of your finger directions and your palm normal.
It seems like we're coming to an end soon. Last couple of questions. So you said your current project that you're working on now is the hoverboard. Are there any UX problems that you plan on tackling next?
Well, like we talked about with Hoverboard itself, I want to add more functionality to those 3D planes of menus, and probably explore how those menus work if they're in world space versus if they're attached to your camera. There might be some strangeness there that I haven't thought about yet. In terms of typing specifically, I think Hoverboard is in like an intermediate solution. I think it works, but I think it could be done better. I've got some ideas in mind for how that might work. One of them is sort of, you could kind of imagine a sphere or maybe a hemisphere around both of your index fingers, and you kind of do this motion and return back to the center each time. So, and you would have the letters all arranged inside that sphere. So you kind of have to relearn, it'd be it's not a standard keyboard, but I think you could probably go pretty quickly doing those kind of motions, and you could turn the hover delay way down to make that even faster. So that would have a learning curve, I think, and I could see it being difficult to kind of see all the letters if they're inside of a sphere. But I'm just thinking that if you kind of do that like you learn typing where you're not really looking at it, it could work well, and I think it could go quickly. So we'll see. I want to try it out. I gotta prototype it to see if that would work at all. But I think it might.
So there's something there's a feature that we're hoping to include in tracking in the future that's being worked on right now, is that we want to be able to touch our own skin of the other hand. So have you tried the arm HUD? Have you heard about it?
The what?
The arm HUD.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So right now the arm HUD is a set of widgets that you have your left arm up, it will expand buttons and sliders on the side of the arm, forearm, and you can press them with your right hand. One of the UX interface, the UX experiences that we experimented in the early stages is trying to have it on top of the forearm and pressing on them, but that is a very, very tough spot for tracking the handle.
I imagine it's like a low contrast kind of effect, infrared.
Exactly, because your hand and the arm, when it's touching, it becomes almost one object. But it's something that we are working on, and stay tuned. If that becomes reliable, I think it'll be very powerful, even for the keyboard as well, and we'll see how that goes as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm curious to see how that goes. One of the lines of feedback that I get often is, well, why don't you just touch your fingers together to make menu selection? And I mean, aside from that means you only get 4 menu items. I usually I try to explain. Maybe there's a term for it. I call it sensory mismatch, where I think it's a problem if you touch your fingers together and you feel it, but the action doesn't actually occur. Like tracking is even a couple millimeters off, the selection's not going to happen. So now I'm touching, and the selection in virtual reality is not happening. That's that your sight is not matching up with your other senses, and I think that's something I want to avoid.
Right.
So yeah, anything that you guys can do to make the tracking work 100% perfectly every time, right? When you touch your fingertips, touch your skin, or touch a surface, I think that could be really interesting.
We got a question from Twitch. It says that your API requires custom listener. Are you planning to provide more custom listeners?
I'm not sure. So the listeners right now are pretty straightforward. I think maybe he's saying custom in the sense that I wrote them myself. If there are Unity specific listeners, I'm still relatively new with Unity. So if there are Unity specific listeners that are available, I could look into those. Do you know offhand?
Yeah. This person mentioned about are you planning on maybe integrating this with Unity's GUI framework? Because Unity recently has released, I forgot, what kind of framework did they release?
The UI.
The
The
UI,
UI,
right? Yeah, the UI framework. Are you planning on
yeah. So
integrating that?
that was 4.6, and yeah, Hovercast. Both projects use that the text element, the text component from that 4.6 release. So yeah, all the labels on the menu items are like, what is it, a canvas group and a canvas and a text item, all laid out there. So in
Awesome.
like a world space UI text.
Awesome. Yeah, I think we're about to wrap up. Is there anything that you want to say to the community here?
Well, thanks for stopping by and listening in and watching. I'm having a good time exploring virtual reality interfaces and making prototypes and getting feedback. Making videos has been interesting. If you want to keep up with progress and updates, you can watch the project on GitHub. I'm at Zach Kinstner on Twitter. You can follow me there. I post updates and new videos and animations and stuff as they happen. So that's a good way to stay up to date with what I'm working on. If you want to try Hovercast or Hoverboard, you want to integrate it into your application. The licensing is GPL version 3. So that means that as long as you're open source, essentially you can use it, commercial or not. If you're closed source and not commercial, I usually let that go. Just let me know you're working on it, so I like to know what people are doing. And if it is commercial and closed source, also let me know, and we'll figure out.
Sorry.
Oh, if it's closed source and commercial, just send me an email, let me know, and we'll figure out licensing. I haven't thought about that too much yet, but and for those developers, the open source developers who are working on projects, please do let me know. I started a showcase page at the GitHub site where it shows the apps that are using it and some screenshots and some quotes, links and that sort of thing. And I'll do my best to post it around on Twitter and Reddit or wherever and try to spread the word, because I really like to see my work being used. That's exciting for me. I like to hear from developers what works, what doesn't, and it's exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so in the chat, we've posted the GitHub link to the Hovercast. We also posted the download link to the Hovercast as well in the Leap Motion website, and the Zach's Twitter handle. So thank you all for coming, listening, and do check out Zach's work. It's really, really cool. If you have an Oculus device, do try it on. And it's good to know feedback on how you feel about it. I'm sure he would be delighted to know.
Definitely.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Until next time.
All right. Thanks,
Zach.
everybody. Bye.
Bye.